Burnout rarely begins with a clear or dramatic signal. It does not usually arrive as a sudden collapse, visible failure, or moment of obvious distress. Instead, it develops gradually, forming beneath routines that appear stable, productive, and manageable. Because this process unfolds slowly and blends into everyday activity, burnout often accumulates long before it is recognized as something distinct from ordinary strain. Often, burnout builds quietly because it allows continued functioning. In many cases, people experiencing early burnout remain capable of meeting expectations. Tasks are completed, responsibilities are fulfilled, outward performance remains intact. Because visible disruption is absent, strain is interpreted as tolerable. The continuation of normal output creates the impression that nothing significant is wrong. Early burnout frequently resembles ordinary experience. Fatigue, mental overload, and emotional strain are familiar sensations in demanding environments. These states occur regularly and are usually temporary. When burnout begins, it often takes on the same outward form. The difference is not immediate intensity, but persistence over time. Because the sensations feel recognizable, they rarely stand out as warning signs. Gradual escalation plays a central role in burnout's quiet development. Demands tend to increase incrementally rather than all at once. Slight extensions of work time become routine. Additional responsibilities are layered onto existing ones. Emotional demands increase subtly. Each change feels reasonable in isolation. Over time, however, these changes compound into a significantly heavier load that is difficult to perceive while it is forming. Normalization reinforces this accumulation. Once a certain level of pressure becomes routine, it stops being perceived as pressure. What once felt demanding becomes the baseline. Often, this shift reduces sensitivity to overload. In many cases, when high demand becomes normal, it loses its ability to signal that conditions have changed. Burnout also develops quietly because sustained effort is frequently socially reinforced. Persistence, availability, and endurance are commonly associated with reliability and commitment. When increased effort is acknowledged or valued, the internal cost of maintaining that effort is rarely examined. Pressure becomes linked to worth rather than vulnerability. Competence further conceals burnout. As individuals demonstrate skill and consistency, they are often entrusted with more complex or demanding responsibilities. These tasks require greater cognitive focus and emotional regulation. In many cases, because the added demands follow demonstrated ability, they appear justified. The strain involved in sustaining this level of functioning remains largely unseen. Cognitive changes associated with burnout tend to emerge gradually. Attention narrows slightly. Mental flexibility decreases. Processing speed slows just enough to be noticeable internally. Often, these shifts do not interfere with task completion. Because they lack clear external markers, they are easy to overlook or rationalize as temporary. Emotional changes are similarly understated. Burnout-related exhaustion does not always appear as visible distress. It may present as reduced emotional range, muted responses, or subtle detachment. Often, these changes resemble calmness, composure, or professionalism. Because they do not disrupt outward behavior, they rarely draw attention. Burnout also builds quietly through expectations of temporariness. Sustained pressure is often interpreted as a phase rather than a condition. In many cases, there is an assumption that strain will ease after a deadline, transition, or adjustment period. This expectation delays recognition of cumulative exhaustion, allowing strain to persist longer without scrutiny. Language plays a role in minimizing strain. Common descriptors soften the experience of overload. Words used to describe pressure often imply short-term intensity rather than long-term erosion. Often, this framing normalizes exhaustion and reduces its perceived seriousness. Prolonged strain blends into everyday experience instead of standing apart from it. The absence of a clear starting point further obscures burnout. Unlike acute stress, which can often be traced to a specific event, burnout emerges through repetition. In many cases, without a distinct beginning, it becomes difficult to identify when conditions shifted from manageable to unsustainable. The process feels continuous rather than disruptive. Intermittent relief also contributes to burnout's quiet progression. Moments of rest, satisfaction, or accomplishment temporarily ease discomfort. Often, these moments interrupt exhaustion without reversing it. Their presence creates the impression that balance exists, even when the underlying pattern is ongoing depletion. Burnout is difficult to detect because much of it is private. Shifts in motivation, emotional availability, and energy occur internally. These changes are not easily visible to others. Often, recognition depends on self-perception, which is shaped by normalization and adaptation. Social context reinforces burnout's invisibility. When others appear to manage similar demands, individual strain feels unremarkable. Shared pressure becomes a collective baseline. In many cases, comparison reduces the likelihood that early burnout will be recognized as meaningful or unusual. Structural conditions further support quiet accumulation. Environments that prioritize continuity and output often lack consistent recovery mechanisms. When rest is informal, fragmented, or unpredictable, depletion occurs gradually. This allows burnout to deepen without triggering immediate disruption. Burnout persists quietly because slowing down often feels more disruptive than continuing. As long as basic functioning remains intact, momentum favors persistence. Often, the perceived cost of pausing outweighs the perceived cost of ongoing strain, even as internal resources decline. Emotional labor contributes significantly to burnout's invisibility. Sustained regulation of emotion requires energy, yet this effort is largely unseen. In many cases, when emotional labor is continuous, exhaustion accumulates without obvious external markers. Burnout develops through the accumulation of small losses, missed recovery, reduced curiosity, narrowed attention, subtle disengagement. Each loss seems minor in isolation. Together, they alter baseline functioning. The gradual nature of these changes prevents early recognition. A sense of control can delay awareness. When persistence feels self-directed, strain is interpreted as a choice rather than a condition. Often, this framing reduces urgency and reinforces continuation, even as internal capacity erodes. Identity further complicates recognition. When reliability, dedication, or endurance are central to self-concept, depletion is absorbed rather than questioned. In many cases, strain becomes part of identity rather than a signal that something has changed. Over time, recovery becomes less effective. Rest no longer restores energy fully. Breaks feel shorter. Fatigue returns more quickly. This shift often occurs slowly and without contrast. The expectation of recovery remains, even as its impact diminishes. Burnout continues to develop quietly because it adapts rather than interrupts. Internal responses shift to accommodate sustained demand. Energy is redistributed instead of replenished. Attention narrows instead of expanding. Emotional range contracts gradually, often without conscious awareness. Often, burnout does not feel painful. Instead, it feels neutral. Numbness, detachment, or emotional flatness replace stronger emotional responses. These states lack urgency. They do not demand attention in the way acute distress does. Their subtlety allows them to persist. Routine plays a central role in burnout's persistence. Repetition creates familiarity, and familiarity reduces perceived intensity. Even unsustainable conditions can feel manageable when they are predictable. Burnout embeds itself within this predictability. Burnout also remains unnoticed because it frequently coexists with moments of success. Achievement temporarily offsets exhaustion. Positive outcomes reinforce continuation. These moments mask depletion rather than reversing it, creating a cycle where effort is continually justified by results. As burnout deepens, effort increases simply to maintain the same level of output. Tasks that once required moderate energy demand more focus and concentration. This increased effort is largely internal and invisible. Externally, performance may appear unchanged, reinforcing the illusion of stability. Burnout accumulates because stopping feels disproportionate. Responsibilities remain ongoing. Expectations persist. Continuity is rewarded. Pausing appears disruptive, while endurance feels acceptable. Continuation becomes the default, even as internal resources decline. Over time, the gap between effort and recovery recovery widens. Rest no longer compensates for expenditure. This imbalance develops gradually, often without a clear moment of realization. Decline is measured in small increments rather than noticeable drops. Burnout builds quietly because it is cumulative. No single moment defines it. Each day adds a small amount of strain. Each recovery period restores slightly less than before. The change is slow enough to escape notice. Eventually, functioning relies more on effort than capacity. This reliance is exhausting, but gradual. Because it develops over time, it feels inevitable rather than alarming. Burnout reaches later stages without having clearly announced its arrival. By the time it becomes recognizable, much of the accumulation has already occurred. What appears sudden is often the point at which internal depletion can no longer be concealed by routine or effort. Often, burnout becomes visible when effort can no longer compensate for reduced capacity. Cognitive fatigue deepens. Emotional distance increases. Basic functioning requires disproportionate energy. The contrast between previous capacity and present limitation brings recognition. Burnout builds quietly because it integrates into normal life. It allows routines to continue, expectations to be met, and obligations to be fulfilled. Its silence reflects gradual accommodation rather than absence. In many cases, burnout is not the result of extreme pressure, but of sustained pressure that becomes familiar. Adaptation delays recognition. Normalization reduces contrast. Continuity allows depletion to accumulate without drawing attention. Often, burnout is mistaken for a sudden breakdown. In many cases, it is the final visible stage of a process that has been unfolding quietly for a long time. What appears abrupt is usually the moment when accumulation can no longer be absorbed by routine, effort, or endurance. Burnout builds quietly because it aligns with what feels normal. Performance continues. Expectations are met. Pressure becomes familiar. Gradual change reduces contrast, allowing depletion to deepen without drawing attention. In many cases, burnout is not created by extreme moments, but by sustained conditions that remain unchanged while internal capacity slowly declines. Adaptation delays recognition. Normalization softens warning signs. Continuity masks cost. By the time burnout becomes unmistakable, it is rarely new. It is simply no longer quiet.